Good morning. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We will be starting the formal portion of the webinar momentarily, but I'm here very quickly to give you some housekeeping notes. This webinar will be recorded. Following today's program, we will be sending a post-webinar survey out that will include a link to the recording, so you can feel free to watch it again or share it with any partners, colleagues, or anyone who was unable to view it. For anyone having technical issues or general questions, please utilize the chat function in your Zoom toolbar. If you have a question for a speaker, we do ask that you submit it using the Q&A tool. This helps us better organize and track which ones we've answered and allow us to get to as many questions as possible and potentially follow up with any that don't get answered during the program. It is now my pleasure to hand official duties over to Supervisor Kirk Euler of Placer County, who also serves as the county's representative on the Greater Sacramento Economic Council Board of Directors. He will be introducing today's program. Kirk represented the 4th District on the Board of Supervisors from 1993 to 96. He was only 25 years old when elected to the post, becoming the 2nd youngest supervisor in California history. He returned to the board on December 19, 2006 to fill the vacancy created after 4th District Supervisor Ted Gaines was elected to the State Assembly in November. He has since been reelected twice. Thank you, Kirk, for joining us today. It's all yours.
Hey, thanks, Danielle, and I really appreciate folks joining us today to engage in this conversation about how our opportunities for higher education in the Greater Sacramento region are being met by our local providers, and really give them an opportunity to engage with our business community to let them tell you how it is that they are working to prepare our future workforce to help meet your needs. And we're really blessed that our providers of higher education and represented here today we'll have Willie Duncan, president of Sierra College, John Jackson, William Jessup University, and Stephen Perez with Sacramento State. I should be more formal. See what happens when you don't wear pants? You just get all casual about these things. The opportunity today to hear from them about their leadership, but also provide some input to them as to what we think we might see coming up with this changing environment that we're all dealing with. And in Placer County, of course, we have these institutions that are helping us meet our needs. And we also have some very exciting opportunities with our board's adoption of a regional university plan a few years ago. We've been in communication with our partnership with the City of Roseville, and Scott Albert will be on a little later to talk, give us some closing comments. Our partnership with the City of Roseville in working to bring a private sector education provider, 4-year university to that project out on the western edge of the City of Roseville. And then of course our Placer Ranch project, where our board approved a 300-acre campus site in the Placer Ranch project that will provide for what will start as a satellite campus of Sacramento State University, and then hopefully morph into its own California State University campus. So tremendous opportunity today for those of us in the business community and in government to hear from our local education leaders what it is they are doing to prepare our future workforce and engage with them on this very important topic. Leading us through this conversation today, I am very pleased to welcome our moderator, Kristen York. She's the Vice President of Business Innovation for the Sierra Small Business Development Center at Sierra Business Council. She leverages her 20 years of experience in strategic planning, finance, operations, marketing, training, and business transformation, really to assist businesses in thriving economically while also understanding their environmental and social impact. So with that, Kristen, thank you for your participation today. We look forward to hearing from you and our panelists.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor Euler. Such a pleasure to be here today with esteemed colleagues here. And I would like to begin this really important discussion by having the speakers introduce themselves, give a quick overview of how each of you are responding to the COVID-19 at your respective campuses. And Willie Duncan, I'm going to ask you to begin, please.
You definitely have to unmute before you start to speak. Definitely appreciate that, Kristen. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for kicking us off Kirk Euler, and I just wanted to introduce myself. I am Willie Duncan. I'm the superintendent president at Sierra College, and obviously we have responded in much the way most colleges and universities have, in that we've been subjected to the stay-at-home orders as others have. We have moved completely to remote instruction for the spring semester, and all of our student services are also remote. We do have a few courses still meeting, all in the emergency preparedness area. So nursing, some of our firefighter classes are still meeting, EMTs. We felt that those were extremely important fields that we needed to continue to train to try to get people out into the workforce, so that they can assist in this and other situations like this. We've made the decision to go all online for the fall semester, or I should say mostly online. We will still have some courses face-to-face in which you really can't do in an online format. For example, you can't learn to weld by watching somebody weld on a video. And we do think it's really important that we try to continue all of our courses. And so we will have a little bit face-to-face, but our major logic in that was we're not sure what the fall brings us. And we do know that we will have social distancing requirements probably in place still in the fall. And so our thought was if we could take as many classes as we could online, and then leave what absolutely had to be face-to-face on campus, that would significantly shrink the traffic on campus and the potential for any kind of spread on the Sierra College campus. And one of the things that we do know is in Placer County, at least, the Rockland campus is probably the largest meeting place in Placer County. We have more foot traffic there than really you have in any location. So essentially by us trying to be mostly online in the fall, we're hoping that reduces any spread of any reemergence in the fall and allows the rest of the community to stay open, small businesses, other businesses in the community. So we really are viewing it that way and hope that we can get the best of both worlds. The community can stay open and the college can still function and help move students towards their goals of getting trained, getting degrees, getting certificates, and getting out into the workforce.
Fantastic. And Dr. Perez, the CSU had a very important announcement today or last night. And could you weigh in on how Cal State University Sacramento has prepared themselves?
I didn't heed Willie's warning that I got to unmute myself. Sorry about that. My name is Steve Perez. I'm Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs here at Sacramento State. I've been here for a long time. I started here as an economics professor. I've been an econ professor for about 25 years, and this has been the hardest, most challenging semester I've experienced. I'm sure anybody has. I can't imagine going through this without that kind of a realization. And as you said yesterday, the entire California State University and our campus as well announced that we're going to be in basically the same setup that Willie and Sierra is going to be in next fall, where our courses, virtually all of them, will be virtual. We're going to hold out hope to have some classes that we can have face-to-face interaction, be it lab, be it performing or creative arts or nurses or something along those lines that'll go through a vetting process. We did that this spring in a very short period of time. Our faculty and our staff did heroic work being creative and transitioning well over 5,000-6,000 sections from face-to-face to virtual, and we want to enhance that for next fall. Our summer is also virtual, and we're going to try and support our faculty as much as we can to be able to produce even better courses next fall.
Fantastic. And Dr. Jackson, you have a little bit different perspective with a smaller campus at William Jessup. Could you introduce yourself and let us know your response to COVID-19?
Thank you, Kristen. My name is John Jackson. I'm the president of William Jessup University, and I want to thank GSEC and Barry and Danielle and others for providing this context for an important discussion. I want to start off by saying we have great respect and appreciation. We work well together and on a consistent basis with our community college friends, particularly enjoy a good relationship with Willie and Sierra College. Stephen and Cal State Sacramento, we have great fondness for, but those two campuses are in a very different setting than ours, and sometimes tongue-in-cheek, and please hear me, it's tongue-in-cheek. We say that we're the free market university in the Sacramento region. And so that gives us a little bit more freedom working outside the state systems, but we also have a much smaller campus, about 100 acres, maybe 2,000 students. And so our orientation as we closed out the spring semester, really appreciate what both Willie and Stephen said, probably the most difficult, challenging setting I've ever personally experienced in leadership in any setting. But we were able to keep about 150 of our students on campus. We previously had 600 living residentially. Many of them chose to go home. 150 stayed here. It was their safest, healthiest, and most educationally consistent environment. Thankfully, at our Rockland campus, we've had no incidents of COVID-19 for our faculty, our staff, our students. We're so grateful for that. We, of course, are praying for the whole larger community. This fall and this summer, we are hopeful and planning and believing that we can return to a campus-based experience face-to-face. We will be implementing social distancing, a variety of other health protocols, of course, sanitizers, masks available, et cetera. I want to thank Supervisor Euler and all of the Placer County employment base. We've really worked hard with our county health department to be very careful, to be very cautious. But because it's a smaller campus, we think we can accomplish social distancing. And for us at Jessup, we wouldn't celebrate small versus big, but we do think that there's some advantages in us having the kind of campus we do. By the way, we have a full suite of online programs, and those are growing very robustly right now. I'm sure we'll talk about what I call the miracle of and. You can be online and campus-based, do both with excellence. And I want to celebrate great education, because great education leads to great employment, which leads to community flourishing. So we're excited about the future, and at the same time, very soberly minded about what's happening with the coronavirus.
Fantastic. How fortunate we are to have these three institutions right in our backyard. And great education also leads to great problem solvers. So if the three of you could reflect on how you're ensuring that this transition from in-person to distance learning will be positive for the student experience and will not impact the retention or graduation rates. And I would invite Dr. Perez to begin that conversation.
Thanks, Kristen. It is a challenge, right? We've all taken and been privileged to be in these jobs, as you said, because we like to solve problems. Now we're facing problems we've not seen before, which is intellectually stimulating, but a little emotionally exhausting these days. Our commitment is the same as it always been. It's the same as Willie's and John's is. We're going to provide the best educational opportunity and experience we possibly can for our students. That's why we're going to have, I think we're calling it summer camp. Our faculty will be campers, and we'll have camp counselors to help improve our ability and our faculty's ability to deliver content virtually. We're reaching out to our students and trying to engage with them to see what challenges they're having and how we might be able to overcome those. We've loaned out hundreds and hundreds of laptops, Wi-Fi hotspots. We transformed one of our parking garages into a massive Wi-Fi hotspot to overcome technology challenges. I've taught online. I've taught a number of classes online, and it many times seems less personal, but you can still have a personal touch with your students digitally and now through Zoom. I've never done it through Zoom before. So there are still ways to do it. And so what we're trying to do is identify challenges that our students are having, and as we always try to do, is overcome those challenges creatively and working together. And we'll continue doing that into the fall.
Great. And Dr. Jackson, could you reflect on the transition and how we're keeping that positive?
Well, let me say, first of all, and I think all of us would resonate in this, it's really the faculty and the staff, as well as the students, that are heroes during this whole thing. They have just been heroic and amazing. The number of courses transitioned online in a quick experience has been really phenomenal. Jessup has built a learning commons environment where we come alongside students who are maybe struggling or grappling with issues. We have reading and writing and math academies, which help support students in that setting and persevere to graduation. Jessup has kind of an exciting record. About 65 to 70% of our incoming freshmen graduate in 4 years with their 4-year degree, about 80% plus over a 6-year period of time. And we're really, Kristen, taking this crisis, taking this challenging moment and saying, let's make sure that we reorganize everything at the university around student success. And for us, student success is spiritual, academic, and vocational. And I think this is actually a tremendous moment where problem solving is going to lead not just to new solutions, it's going to lead to new worldviews about the world and the economy and the ecosystem that we get the privilege to inhabit.
Wow, I hope so. I agree with you, and I hope so. Willie Duncan, would you like to reflect on this notion of?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll add a few things, try not to duplicate what both Steve and John have said, and they're right on the mark, and many of the same things that are happening at their colleges and universities are also happening at Sierra College. One thing I want to mention is part of our reason to make a decision fairly early regarding the fall semester was we wanted to implement a very robust professional development program for our faculty. And many of our faculty have taught online and are fantastic online instructors already, but many never have taught an online course. And it is, if you're not in education, it's hard to understand how complex and difficult it is to build a really effective online course where you know students are learning and really getting the same out of that than they would in person. And so it's a 5-week program that we've created, and we're hoping almost 500 faculty will go through that program. We have our first class in it right now with 50 faculty in it, and we'll do that through the summer. It's tough stuff, and in fact, I talked to a faculty member last night who told me at one point in time she was in tears over all of this and how difficult it was, and how she was struggling, but she has said now she feels she's going to be a better faculty member because of all of this. So looking for that silver lining in all of this and what happens. We also have an early alert system set up for our students. So focusing on the student success portion, a faculty member can set a flag for a student that says, hey, this student might need some help. And then our student support team reaches out to that student to find out what they might need. And then really looking at specific needs for students. Do they have financial needs? Do they have food insecurity? Do they have technology needs? We've been providing Wi-Fi hotspots to students. We've been providing financial assistance if they need it. Every Wednesday at noon, so here in about 10 minutes, students can show up who need food on campus in our parking lot, and we give them food. And we set up Wi-Fi in our parking lot. So a lot of things we're doing to try to assist students. And I just think that really focused approach, focused on student services, reaching out to them regularly and communicating regularly is going to pay a lot of dividends.
Great. I'm sensing such a strong leadership in the three of you. And one of the best qualities of leadership is that you can navigate uncertainty, which we have every day, right? So this next question you can kind of breeze through because you've touched on it is how, and I'm going to weave in one of the audience questions because this is an important one to me as well. But how are you helping your faculty and students and staff navigate uncertainty? And in particular, one area of uncertainty has been around intercollegiate athletics. And will we have it next semester? And how will the student athletes respond? So if you could take those themes and weave them into response for me. And Dr. Jackson, I invite you to begin.
Shoot, I was hoping you'd ask the other guys first so I could figure out what to say. So let me say that I've had some moments during this whole process where my heart has started to beat fast. And sometimes when my heart beats fast, it's because I'm excited. And other times when I can sense my heart beating fast, it's because I'm nervous, the uncertainty of it all. And so to be quite frank, even though I think I've done a really good job leading our university and I'm proud of our faculty and staff, I get nervous. And so maybe one of the principles I would say is just be honest with yourself. Sometimes I'll walk into a meeting or I'll share an article or we'll talk in Zoom and I'll say, guys and gals, I don't know what to do about this issue. I'm concerned about it. And I think just being full of integrity as a leader is the first thing. Second of all, don't get too rigid. A lot of times leaders want to have solutions and sometimes just being honest that solutions don't exist is where you have to live. So let me use athletics. I want to play. I'm kind of a sports guy. I'm not a rabid fan, but I enjoy sports, and I want our athletic teams to play. I know what it does for our student experience. So I'm pushing hard. I'm the chair of our athletic conference of the private schools that we play against, as well as some of the publics. And I want us to compete. I want that for our athletes. I want that for our campus. And we'll do the best we can to facilitate, even if we have to play without any fans. But we're working on multiple scenarios. Some of that will be decided by our national organization, NAIA. Some of that will be decided by our athletic conference and then our own campus. So I think be full of integrity, be honest with yourself, don't get too rigid, embrace the uncertainty, I'm saying a little bit, and then just recognize you got to move forward, and then eventually you pull the trigger, you make the decision, you head the direction. And I want to say one last thing. Please hear, audience, please hear, these are three very different circumstances, and Jessup has about 40% of our students who are Pell eligible, which means they're lower income households. Every single campus that you're hearing from today has different contexts to navigate, and we've got to be sensitive to serving our entire population at each one of these institutions that are represented.
That was a fantastic answer, actually. Thank you. President Duncan, you actually, one of your former football players was recently drafted to the 49ers. I know that's a very important program for Sierra College. Could you reflect on this question?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's not lost on me that Dr. Jackson said he was hoping one of us would go first because he didn't have a good solid answer. And that was a fantastic answer. So, much of what he said is true. It's interesting. I was thinking back, my mentor, I went to CSU Bakersfield, which was where I got my undergrad and graduate degrees. I grew up in Bakersfield. And my mentor there, who was a great man and vice president of student services there, told me one of his sayings was, learn to deal with ambiguity. And I never knew what he meant, back then when I was a college student trying to figure the world out. Well, I certainly know what he meant now. It's times like this, there are no easy answers. There's only uncertainty, and everybody looks to us as leaders for answers. And we do have to resist the temptation to give answers, because in some circumstances, we don't have the answers. And so it is helpful for us to be authentic, to be who we are, to express our viewpoint and share our thoughts, but not try to solve everything for everybody. And I just encourage all of our staff, as we talk about what we're facing, to extend some grace to each other, some kindness to each other. We're all going through something that we've never been through, and all of us respond differently to things like this. And so to the extent that we can support each other, and it's okay to have some uncertainty right now, we will get answers as we move forward. We'll do our best. We'll analyze information. We'll make the best decisions we can. You can't go wrong in supporting students. So I've tried to tell everybody, if you make a mistake in supporting a student, I'm never going to be upset with you for doing that. That's really what we're here to do. So I just think it's important to remember those things as you move forward.
Great. And Dr. Perez, if you could weigh in. I know athletics is also a huge program at Sac State.
It is. And I honestly, I don't know that I can add anything to what Willie and John said. Everything they said is absolutely true.
Yeah.
We're at a time where we don't know the answers to every question. If we're honest with people about that, and humble about that, and admit that what we're doing is the best we possibly can. We're making decisions when we can based on what our core values are and what we're aiming for, and that's student success and the success of our faculty and staff and of our region. And that's how we're going to, in a lot of ways, that makes hard decisions relatively easy to make. That this is what we're aiming at, and this is what we're striving to accomplish. But one of the other things, and Willie touched on it, is we're all doing the best we possibly can. And that's going to be as good as we can do given the circumstances. But I think it's also important to remember everybody else is doing the best they can too. In times of uncertainty and stress, people can get frustrated with each other, and there can be some antagonism sometimes that gets built up. But if we extend that grace and the understanding that we're all doing the best we possibly can under the circumstances, I think we're going to be a lot better off. I can say a little bit about athletics. I don't want to take up, I can actually say a lot about athletics.
Little bit.
Yeah, a former student athlete. I think it's a fantastic aspect of what we do at Sacramento State and at every other institution. It's great for our students, and it's great for our student athletes, and it's great for our community and all of that. I think it's great. Great supporter of it. And the truth is, we don't know what fall is going to be like. We will do everything we possibly can to make the experience as good as we can, but we don't know what the circumstances are going to be when we get there.
Great. Well, you probably don't have time to look at the chat, but there's a consensus that, as I said, we have 3 strong leaders, and the messaging of we don't have all the answers. We need to embrace that. And that we are in unprecedented time. So we do not have to solve everything. And what a great reminder to have patience and grace with colleagues and friends alike. We are navigating together. So that's the consensus out there. Now, I want to shift a little bit, and this is also coming up related to career and technical education, CTE. So one of the questions is, I'm going to read this directly from our chat because this is very important. And I'm going to start with President Duncan, and that is on dealing with the vocational focus. And you touched on this a little bit, that there will be some in person. And this question is directly related to classes such as welding and mechatronics and nursing. And will those students be able to take lab classes that they need, that you know, online is just not the same? If you could reflect on that, and then we'll go down the line because I know lab classes are important for everybody.
Sure. So let me just first in general say that, you know, a third of our mission in California community colleges is focused on career and tech education. And it's an area that I really think is extremely important for us, especially right now, as we come out of, you know, this pandemic. And, you know, we are trying to, you know, jumpstart our economy and get students the training they need to get out and get into the workforce. I think career tech ed is a real growth area for us. And, you know, people sometimes, you know, don't realize, you know, nursing is a career tech ed program, firefighting, police, EMT training, welding, mechatronics that were mentioned here, advanced manufacturing. These are all career tech ed programs that we've got at Sierra College. And to answer the question directly, our goal is to have those classes in session, in person, in the fall. And part of our, as I stated earlier, part of our logic for wanting to move online and move as much as we possibly can online was so that those classes that can't meet online, that have to have a face-to-face component, even if it's not all of it, it might be somewhat of a hybrid where some of it's online, but some needs to be in person, that we can still do that. So it's our goal to do it. I'm hopeful we'll be able to do that. I know some decisions are out of our control, and the decision might be taken out of our hands at some point in time. But as of right now, we believe we can do it. And by limiting access on campus from many of those classes, we think we open up space on our campus to be able to do those very things.
I'm so glad to hear that, because there's a lot of research out there now, especially from the high school on, where, you know, we're all different types of learners. Some students are kinetic learners and they really need that hands-on, as opposed to learning online is a very different dynamic, and students can lose interest. So another question that came in, and as I go down the line, if you could weave this into your answer, is what is the balance between retraining people that may be out of a job and sort of rescuing people that are in true distress that may need more hands-on or in-person education? I'm gonna let either Dr. Perez or Dr. Jackson jump in there.
I mean, we're in the similar boat as Willie was talking about. We're going to try and do as many labs as we can. In the same way, we're not going to do it in any way that's unsafe or unhealthy. So we'll distance people. We'll do whatever precautions we need to do to make some classes which just cannot be moved virtual because our students need to be able to have that hands-on access. There was some comment earlier about, and I'm not sure whether it was a comment before we came on or after, but about our continuing education branches and certificates and skills training. Those are going to be very important. You talk about those individuals in our community that have either lost a job or are not working as much as they want, and they want to learn some new skills. We need to be there for them to be able to help them learn those skills. And then I think the last part of your question was more about people that are truly struggling, either emotionally or economically. We all need to be there to be able to help support each other in any number of ways. The difficulty is, how do we do that virtually? How do you give somebody a hug when they need it? When we're staring at each other through a screen? We're going to need to get a lot better at that over the next coming months.
Right, right.
Kristen, may I take a stab at that?
Please do.
Okay, so I just want to say quickly that one of the brand promises we try to make at Jessup is that graduates will be exceptionally employable. And people tend to think of college students as 18 to 24-year-olds, and that's absolutely a critical age, and it's important. But I think if you looked across the United States, an increasing number of college students are what you described. There are people in the workforce going back to get retrained. There are people who are getting a graduate degree in a discipline. Their field has shifted, and so you think about how the economy changes. If I could take a little shot at some of us folks in higher ed, and this is not my native field, but sometimes we think there's a gap between education and training, or between theory and practice. And I think part of the opportunity we have is to abolish that gap. It's so important that we have job-ready graduates. And that's where we've got to work with the workforce. We've got to make sure that we have certificates, credentials, training. I think Sac State, sorry for not being proper, Cal State University, Sacramento, Sierra College, our other community colleges do a great job at this. And Jessup and other schools do an increasingly good job at providing opportunity for certificates, credentials, degrees that are job ready. And sometimes that's an oscillating pattern. People go to school for a while, they go into the workforce, then they come back. I think that's the way we need to think about it. And the relationship between the educational experience and the economic experience needs to be tighter in the future, not further apart.
Great answers. So you kind of teed up my next topic, and I'm going to weave in one of the audience questions as well. So in light of this discussion and the projected shifts in the economy, which, you know, we have one economics professor here, at least one that I know of, how do you envision, first of all, new programs that may be high growth to meet the needs of employers? And how do you envision taking making this crisis as an opportunity for your campus? So you all three have very different campuses, very different cultures, very different environments. And this may give you an opportunity, particularly when it's not crowded with students, to keep the most positive cultural aspects, but maybe create some new cultural aspects. So that was a long question, but the essence of my question is, where do you see the new paths for growth and positive development at each of your individual campuses? And I'm going to ask Dr. Perez to begin that.
Thank you. It's actually a pretty interesting question in a number of ways. One, we were pursuing new programs that our region needs already. We do that all the time. We're going to have a hospitality degree come online. We're looking at a applied doctorate in audiology. We've got these programs already building, and this doesn't interrupt that much. We can continue that planning, and we can continue developing those programs as we always do. Mm-hmm. What this may have done, what the crisis has done, is maybe taught us some new skills and some new ability to reach each other and reach our students. My own experience, when I've taught a number of face-to-face classes, and then I taught a purely online class, that made me a better face-to-face teacher when I taught my face-to-face classes afterwards, because as Willie was talking about, you have to think about it differently. It has to be structured differently. And that change in thinking helped my face-to-face teaching all at the same time. We're going to be looking at how we might be able to expand our reach to our students even when we're in our classroom, and that's going to benefit us later on, as it may eliminate some of our classroom restrictions based on size. So maybe a longer answer than you wanted. Our program development is going to continue. There's going to be new demand and new needs, cybersecurity and things like that we're going to try to, in partnership with our colleagues, meet those demands. But it does create the opportunity to be more entrepreneurial and more creative in ways that we hadn't anticipated necessarily going this fast.
Right. You know, I just, as the next two answer, there's been some questions about collaboration. And in my view, in the state of California, our universities, our community colleges and our state and our UCs and even the private university, we collaborate very well. But do you see opportunity for more collaboration with this crisis and how you're shifting your direction? I'm going to let Dr. Jackson take a lead on that.
Well, thank you. I think that Stephen pointed out a couple real key things. Innovation, creativity, those need to explode. In fact, I would just say that I want to speak out for a group of people. We've talked about athletics, but we didn't talk about the arts. I think artists in all different fields have a lot to teach us about creativity and innovation. And it's the convergence areas, let's say between biology and art, believe it or not, where you can make new discoveries. So I think there's collaboration internal to the institution. Instead of being silos of these disciplines, we need to have creative new disciplines. And then there's collaboration externally. And I'll point out two ways, Kristen. First of all, collaboration between institutions and economic engines. I know this is near and dear to GSEC's heart, but there's workforce needs that we need to be prepared for, and educational institutions need to partner with employment organizations to ensure that we're meeting those needs. But also, those of us on this call, we already have some collaboration. Our teacher education programs and some of the other science programs already have some overlap and some connectivity. I think that's going to increase in the future. If all three of our institutions were maxed out, we wouldn't put a dent in the number of people who need to be educated in our region. So this is not a zero-sum game. We need to educate more and more people in the Sacramento region so that we become a robust, healthy, thriving economy.
Absolutely. Great answer. And Willie, Duncan, I mean, you've got such a huge opportunity there to really, even all of you do, but I think at the community college level is so accessible for a first-time student for the most part. So I'm going to ask you to take my question, maybe to expand it to how you might be positioning yourself to attract new students with these new online opportunities to dip their toe in for maybe the first time.
Yeah, so so the last two comments that both Steve and John made are just so on track, and you know, we're really focusing. I think some of the opportunity that is coming our way right now is in really focusing on how we can provide our services in different ways to students. You know, going remote the way we have has forced us into utilizing the technology that we've had, that we've been using but not fully utilizing. And so really looking for new ways to connect, and I think that's exciting. And speaking about programs and kind of how we, you know, where we're going, I mean, obviously digital skills are extremely important. We've been talking a lot about digital skills over the last few years, so this isn't new, but it gets highlighted in something like this where we're all working remotely. You know, a program, Steve mentioned cybersecurity. That's a program that we have been creating over the last couple of years. We've put new certificates and degrees out there. It's a really growing program for us. And if you look at the job market and all of the job market data that's out there for growth, it's one of the largest growing fields in our economy. And so that's an area that is an example of something that we're creating new that we think is going to meet some of that job demand. And then in relation to collaboration, you know, we all connect with our employers, but at the community college level, especially in those career tech ed programs, it is the most vital connection for us to ensure that we've got good programs. And a couple of recent examples, we retooled our construction program recently, and we did that through the assistance of the North State Builders Association. And they brought their partners to the table along with our educators, and we completely changed our program, and it now connects with industry. Industry helps us teach it, and we've created a boot camp. Those students go right to work out of that program, and we have a 100% placement rate right now in students that are coming out of that program. And so really nice. It really links in well with what John talked about earlier with stackable certificates. You get an entry level, you get started, and then we connect you into ways as your career goes on, how can you further develop your skills? How can you move into other areas within your field of expertise? And that's to me is a prime example of the kinds of things that we're trying to build and collaborate with our community on right now.
I love it so much because I've been impressed with programs at all of your university. At Sierra College, I had an opportunity to tour the nursing school that you literally built out of nothing for a 4-year program. And at Sac State, I have to tell you, one of the best interns I ever had came out of Sac State. And at William Jessup, with I have a little less experience with, but our Small Business Development Center, we have benefited so much from that relationship. And I think the point is that you interfacing with the employers directly, so there is that direct line between I'm going to school and I'm going for a purpose. There's a lot of reason why you go, just to expand your knowledge, but having that connection to your own life's purpose and what you want to do, that you're going to end up with a job, is so important. I'm so impressed with your program, so thank you for those answers. I had a really quick question I want to just throw in here about, and let's keep this one quick, but managing and implementing policies around PPE in your for your in-person class, and if you will provide a choice, or have you even got to the point where you're thinking about those policies yet? And we'll start with Willie and just go down the line. I want to keep this one quick.
Sure, absolutely, real quick. Well, our nursing program, which is continuing right now, is using PPE in the classroom. And they're going to be using PPE when they go out and go to work. So it's a natural fit for them. We're working right now on what that looks like for the fall. And honestly, I don't have that answer yet. We're trying to study how best do we socially distance, how can we clean and disinfect spaces, and what kinds of PPE do we need for our students to utilize in order to keep everybody safe. I don't think it's going to be realistic to expect hospital level PPE to be used in a classroom. But to the extent that a mask works to keep, things from getting out into the air, that we may ask students to do that. We may ask gloves to be used, those kinds of things. So we're working on that right now.
Great. And how about at Sac State? Has it even been a thought yet?
No, we're doing the same.
Yeah.
We're gonna follow whatever the guidelines we get from our county health officials and make sure that we've got that for our students and for our faculty and staff.
Yeah, and at William Jessup, I was so touched by the students that were able to stay on your campus and feel safe. And that's something that many students around the country were not able to do. They were forced out of their dorms, and they may have been foreign students. So congratulations to William Jessup for allowing that to occur.
Thank you. And we don't have anything much to add other than this. I say, cleaning, the social distancing, sanitizing, county health. I think if there's ever a time for counties to be valued for what they do in the public health arena, it's right now. So like others, we're just going to follow our county health guidelines. And the whole issue of mask is one that's confusing to me. So much data on both sides of that. But we certainly will allow for masks and provide those as needed and as required by the county.
Right. Yes, our county health officials have been working overtime, and I do not envy any of those people. They have, I'm sure, no one knew this was coming and ready to deal with it, but they have been definitely in the hot spot. So I want to shift this to, let's look outside the campuses to the community. And we've done that a little bit, talking about workforce development and the relationships we have with employers and the workforce investment boards, et cetera. But when we think about, this will be more of a discussion, and if I get more questions, I will bring those into the discussion. But with respect to the greater Sacramento region, and looking outside of so we've been focusing into the schools right now. What can the greater Sacramento community do now to support your success, the ongoing success for all the way from the community college through state and private? And I'm going to invite Dr. Jackson to kick that off. So looking at your community and who you deal with, what can the community do most to ensure that William Jessup and all of these schools will be there 100 years from now?
Thank you so much, Kristen. And I did see in the notes that Barry had a question he wanted to ask, but before he asked the question, I want to respond to yours. I'm actually glad I got this question first because it gives me a chance to say, you could pray for us, and we're a faith-based institution. So if you're a praying person, pray for us. But in addition to that, a couple things that you could do that would be really helpful. First of all, just recognize that we're here. All of our institutions are here. If you have expertise or knowledge or economic background, and you might be able to leverage that to serve, we're always looking for people who can come guest lecture. We're looking for people who can help support and encourage our students. And one of the greatest ways students get success is they learn from people who are involved in the real world, and our faculty are, and we want people in the local community. So maybe a third thing I'd suggest, so pray, get involved. And the third thing would be this: when you think about the larger ecosystem of the community, the presence of higher education is directly correlated to community wellness. So just be encouraging of K-12, be encouraging of higher ed. It helps lift the entire region. It's critical for workforce development. And Jessup's going to be here 100 years from now because we know that we're loved in this community, and we want to provide value by serving and strengthening the community wherever we can.
That's great. I wanted to touch on Barry's question was, we spoke about it, was that balance between retraining people and rescuing people in true distress. And it sounds like all of your campuses have programs that can help students that may be in distress right now, particularly maybe in a faith-based campus. But, you know, even at the community college level, we're seeing close to 20% unemployment potentially in the state of California. So, and Willie, maybe you can touch on this a little bit in your answer of what the community can do to help ensure that Sierra College is there and that your students thrive. And that could be even providing a safety net for some of these people that are out of work and need support so that they are not distressed and there is hope for their future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, along those lines, you know, our shameless plug for our foundation and the work that they do, you know, they raise funds to support our students and our programs. And right now, in fact, I mentioned to you that there's a food donation going on at noon at the college for students that can drive through and pick up bags of food. It's our foundation that helps organize that. They take donations from the community and distribute it right out to students. So, you know, that's a great way the community can get involved and be partners with us and help support our students. So, and John, you know, as a private university, I'm surprised you didn't take the opportunity to ask them to write a check for you. You know, I'm just kidding.
I wanted you to be able to make the ask for us, Willie. Thank you.
There you go. I just did that for you. So, but and Steve, you're next. So, but you know, I think if I can seriously, what other than direct support and you know partnering with us to support our students, you know, the business community. We rely hugely upon to tell us what you need. And, you know, I mentioned that before and used the example of construction. It takes us some time sometimes to put things together because curriculum has to be written and we've got to get staff in place and those kinds of things. But the more communication we can have with industry about what your specific needs are, and if there are emergencies, what are those emergencies? Because we may be able to package things together fairly quickly and try to meet those needs. So it's one of the things I love about being engaged with Greater Sacramento and being on the Competitiveness Council is we look at those kinds of ideas and what makes our community more competitive. And, you know, one of the things we always look at is college going rate, percentage of degrees in the community. And so all of us are focused on that. And that partnership with our local industry is what helps us build those programs. So more of that.
Great. Happy to hear that. I know being able to pivot and move quickly, we don't always think of that in a large institution, but that is important. Offering pilot programs or maybe in some of your smaller campuses, you have 2 other smaller campuses and being able to accommodate that need. That's a great answer. Thank you. And then finally from our large Cal State, I'm going to say Sac State because everybody else already said it, but that's the way I refer to it. But
we answered lots of names, and I'm happy to answer that.
You know, certainly you have a massive student body, and what can the community do to really, you know, I mentioned internships. Honestly, one of the most outstanding students I've ever been around, and I was not expecting that. I hate to say it, but that's really important, is to get those students out into the workplace and let the community see the level of talent that we have locally, right? And so if you could help our audience understand what they can do to help our students and our schools thrive.
Sure. So I can give a real specific, timely request right now. Virtual internships would be tremendous. As you said, internships are exceptionally important for our students. I had a couple. From the first two, I learned those were jobs I didn't want to have, and so I changed my major, and then I got one that I actually enjoyed, and it's turned out okay for me. In general, we always need to have good communication with GSEC, with the Chambers of Commerce, with the business communities in town. What do our students need to learn? What programs do we need to be developing? And so that communication is always crucial for us to be able to serve our role as one of the higher education institutions in the area. Specifically, what can be done to help our students right now? Our students are just like our colleague students here. They're from this region. They live here. They're going to be here. We've got emergency fund foundation accounts that we can take money into. We raised a couple $100,000. Our students need it. They are having trouble making their rent. They're having trouble finding food. There's all sorts of need out there that our students are a part of, just like all the other students that we've been talking about. But I guess more generically, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but more broadly, I've lived in Sacramento for over 20 years now in this region. Love it. I love living here. And it's because the people here are caring and they're kind to each other. We will all benefit. We are successful if our region is successful. We will be successful through this crisis if we take care of each other. So continue doing that. Continue being the people that we have been for years and years and years, and exhibit that to our neighbors, to our colleagues, to our friends, and to others in the region. That's going to be the biggest thing that's going to help us be able to pull through this and be successful, and would be fantastic.
I love that answer. I mean, there's something about this crisis that has brought us back to the importance of just basic human nature and human decency. I was so struck last week. It was the big day of giving in Sacramento, and it was the largest year ever. So while I mentioned that we're expecting a 20% unemployment rate in the state of California, there are many people, 80% that would be by my math, who are employed and are able to keep their jobs and their homes and their families safe. And they're not spending money because they're not going out. And I think, all of you, rightfully, you could ask for a check, and I'm not here to advocate for that, but that spirit of giving and lifting up and really helping those in need is so important now more than ever. I've learned so much today. Number one is I teach a lot on Zoom, but I have to control my hands. I'm very much an animated speaker, so I'm gonna work on that. Kept seeing flashed by the camera. Any final comments before I welcome our closing comments in 1 minute that you'd like to add?
Can I add one quick comment? I think, and I know this is Placer County, so I know we're gonna have to count on Placer County. Some communities are gonna lead us out of this recovery, and some of these communities are gonna need to be let out. We've built this metropolitan organization for a very specific reason. We think places like Roseville and Lincoln and Rockland and Folsom are probably gonna lead us out of this recovery. So it's so important that the accomplished and the successful stay working with the people that are struggling, because they're going to need us now, more than ever. So it would be really easy for a sophisticated network of talented people to go, well, we got our own challenges and we're going to work on them, because we will have our own challenges. But there's going to be a larger network of people that are going to need our help to lead them out of this. And so that's one of my appeals. And then one of the other appeals is we have to find a balance between empowering people to find their own future and helping people that are being left behind. We've had a very interesting debate in front of the Sacramento City Council since they are getting an $89 million stimulus. And you can see where that is coming down, and it has the potential to be very negative, not positive, the way that dialogue is starting to head. But if we try to reboot our old economy, I just want to remind everybody, we didn't like it that much to begin with. It had suppressed wages, We weren't capturing our college kids. We were disproportionately leaving people of color behind. So we have a chance to reinvent ourselves and be renewed in a more dynamic way and use this suffering to improve governmental discipline, sharpen our pencil on workforce, challenge CEOs to be more philanthropic and committed. And that's my hope, that we'll find that vision for us going forward and see a better future for everyone.
Excellent, thank you. That was a great way for me to end on a positive note and say thank you to all our panelists. You were fabulous, as I would have expected. And to offer some closing comments, I am pleased to now welcome Scott Alvord, Chair of the Placer County Economic Development Board and Council Member with the City of Roseville. Scott is very involved in the regional business community, economic development, the neighborhoods, and tackling solutions for the unhoused in our county. In the business community, he previously served 9 years as president of the Downtown Roseville Merchants. He is CEO of Advanced Development Concepts. He teaches as a business professor at William Jessup University and is a member of the Roseville Area Chamber of Commerce. He is a business speaker, trainer, coach, and author. Thank you for joining us today, Scott.
Well, thank you, Kristen, and the GSEC staff for organizing these informative webinar series. I've enjoyed them, and I think this was awesome today. I'd like to thank the guest speakers for taking time to come online and share the different unique ways that our universities are adapting to this very odd global crisis that we're in the middle of. We're so appreciative of you and what you're doing in our communities. As chair of the Placer County Economic Development Board, I can attest that the higher education institutions are critical to our economic backbone. The regions that don't have these kind of universities, they experience a real challenge in the area of brain drain, where their students are going off to distant regions and getting educated, and often getting internships and jobs in those distant areas, and their hometowns are losing that high education. And we don't have that problem. We are so blessed to have this really nice variety of wonderful universities and colleges. Not only does it avoid the brain drain, but it becomes a brain magnet. We actually attract and draw quality businesses to our region because we have such a well-educated community. And Barry, I think you and your staff have done a really good job of trying to get that message out to those businesses. That's really important. And I also want to say, just in closing, that it's so refreshing to watch how each of you are working as partners and friends instead of competitors. I've seen all of you on different occasions and in different settings, and you guys have always truly seemed like you're partners and never once felt like you guys were competing with each other. You're just so supportive, and you're such great allies in growing our community in our local region. I just saying that's really refreshing, I think, to all of us. So I would like to thank you so much for being here. And you guys, good luck as you help pull us out of this.
Excellent. All right. What a perfect timing. It's 12:29. So that thank you so much for your closing comments, Scott. I agree. We are so fortunate in this region to have amazing, not just institutions, but leaders, caring, thoughtful leaders. So thank you all, and appreciate everybody attending today.